You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from Nvidia to VIX and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is time once again for the Hot Options Report to wrap up your week for Friday, October 10th. And man, we got a banger on our hands. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are mainlining these days. Remember, make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you're getting your favorite podcasts. And of course, if you want to join us for the official after party of volatility views known as Options Oddities, you want to get awesome pro Q&As like we did earlier this week, and giveaways and live streams and all sorts of good stuff, exclusives, early access to great stuff, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. Now, if you're listening to this show, chances are that you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees, whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades. Every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Again, the Hot Options Report brought to you by Public. Full disclosures in the podcast description. All right, let's get down to business. Let's kick things off in VIX land because VIX was bringing the heat today after languishing for weeks now post-Fed, not really able to get out of bed most days. VIX making up for lost time, putting up nearly 2 million contracts today, 1.97 million contracts. Why? Well, that tweet coming out of the White House maybe showing that things aren't as hunky-dory between the U.S. and China on the trade front as perhaps originally hoped, led to an immediate turnaround in the market. Markets going from green to aggressively red, and VIX roaring back to life, hanging out 16.5, 17 handle, roaring all the way up to close today, 21.66, and they got north of a 22 handle intraday. So VIX cash looking spicy again, and the hot option out there today, listeners, and a hot day in VIX was the OCC35s. 109,000 of these going up for an average price of around 43 cents. We talked about these on our Volatility Views program. Check it out if you are intrigued by all things vol, because it looked like paper was selling these, maybe against some futures. So interesting stuff out there as we keep on rolling out to SPY, listeners. SPY and the SPX giving up the ghost. SPY off nearly 2.7%, blowing the doors off the ADV. The ADV is right around 8.5 million. They said, see you later, 14.1 million contracts on the tape today. So SPY just blowing through. We were just talking about, I was talking to someone earlier today, was looking at putting on a bullish 0-day fly in the SPX to maybe break 6,800. Nope. Going in the other direction, listeners. Hot stuff out there. What was the hot option on a hot day? 350,000 of these 673 calls, listeners. Average price for these, about 65 cents, so you know the deal with these, listeners. Obviously, these were put on earlier in the session, and unfortunately, only 20 handles away by the end of the day. That's a rough one. As we keep on rolling out to the SPX, same deal, off about 2.7% in the SPX, also blowing away the ADV. The ADV is around 4.25, putting up over 6.4 million contracts in the S today. The hot option on a very hot day, 106,000 of the 6,600 puts, listeners. Average price for these, almost $10, $9.95. And definitely, if you rode these through the close, you were looking pretty good there, listeners. As we keep on rolling out to small caps, was it similarly spicy in small caps? The answer was yes. Small caps closing off exactly 3% today, so feeling the heat to the downside. Putting up about 2.5 million contracts against an ADV of 1.6 million. The hot option in small caps, they said the hell with 0 day. We're going all the way out to Nov expiration was the 232 puts, changing hands 129,000 times for $3.41 on average. 232, so they're about $5.80 away, listeners, from where they close. Can they get there by Nov expiration? At this pace, they can get there in less than a week, so we'll keep an eye on those, listeners, as we keep on rolling out to the Qs. You know the deal. The Qs was hot today, off 3.5%, so beating small caps and beating the major indices like the S&P to the downside today, listeners. Putting up nearly 7.5 million contracts, 7.43 million contracts against an ADV of 4.3, so definitely spicy out there. And the hot option on a very hot day in the Qs, 166,000, almost exactly, 166,002 to be precise, of the 595 puts. Average price for these, $1.56. So if you bought these and you rode them through the close, once again, you're looking pretty good here, listeners, as this second leg down the second half of the session, really making those puts shine. Speaking of shining, listeners, was it a shiny day for single name equity options? The answer was yes, 921,000 contracts. So all it takes is a major sell-off to threaten 1 million contracts these days in the single names. That gets us to our old pal SoFi. SoFi's been on an interesting run of late, giving some of that back today, off nearly 8% or about 2.25, closing $26.18. The hot option out there on a very hot day in SoFi, 53,000 of the 29 calls. Average price for these, about 27 cents. So unfortunately, these look like they were open probably in the early part of the session when things were looking pretty green on the screen out there, because these almost, once the downturn kicked in, these never really had a chance. As we keep on rolling to number 9, it's our old pal Palantir, putting up exactly 1 million contracts. So number 9 is what it cost us. Or number 9 is where we break the 1 million contract threshold, listeners. And what was the hot option on a 1 million contract day in Palantir, which, by the way, selling off over $10, closing 175.41 today, listeners, about almost 5.5%. It was 45,000 of the 187.5 calls. Once again, these average price about 35 cents. These look like they went up early in the session as well, which again, if you were buying these, listeners, very difficult, to put it mildly, to monetize these. As we keep on rolling to number 8, the game we've been playing all week, Open. Looks like it was a pricey game today, closing today $7.57, selling off about 57 cents out there today, listeners. So Open, all you who are playing on the 9s and the 10s this week, opening for size to the long side, unfortunately, not looking great, closing again shy of the 8 handle, putting up 1.21 million contracts out there. Looks like the tone finally shifted out there. It was the 7.5 puts leading the dance this week, going up 111,000 times. Average price for these around 3 cents. Obviously, these are going up later in the session as Open was vacillating around that 7.5 strike. And unfortunately, they didn't work out. But then again, you only spent 3 cents on them if you bought them. As we keep on rolling out to Intel. Intel also giving up the ghost a little bit as well today. 36.33 is where it went out, selling off nearly 4% today, putting up 1.3 million contracts. The hot option out there today. Once again, people are fixated to the upside and to the 40s. And it might make some sense because the stock got to 39.65 today, but not slinging the 40s that go out this week. They bought themselves an extra week. They went out to the 40s expiring next week in the traditional monthly expiration. Average price for these, 83 cents. So they need Intel to turn around in a hurry if they're going to make these at least break even, listeners. But that was your hot option in Intel, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 6, it's the Amazonians. 216 and about a quarter is where they went out today, off about $11.50 or almost 5% exactly, putting up 1.44 million contracts out there today, listeners. And the hot option out there in Amazon today, listeners, nearly 67,000 of the 230 calls, listeners. Average price for these, about $1.50. So once again, bucking the trend. Amazon not trading 0-day contracts effectively, but actually going out a week, giving themselves a little bit of time to work. So 230 still looking kind of rich right now, and for an average price of $1.50, they definitely were rich, but at least you have an extra week to potentially make those pay off. As we keep on rolling to Apple breaking through the 250 strike down to 245 and about a quarter today, selling off 8 3/4 or about 3.5%, putting up nearly 1.5 million contracts, and the hot option out there in Apple today. Once again, nobody's playing in the 0-day this week. I guess it was too spooky for them. They had to go out an extra week. Usually last day of the week, we're seeing a lot of 0-day trades, but nope. Going out to next week as well, it was 62, almost 63,000 of the 260s. Average price for these about 84 cents as well. So once again, if you're buying these, you need Apple to turn around in a hurry. You better hope this little sell-off this week and today was really just a dust-up, because otherwise you're going to be wearing it on those 84 cents. As we keep on rolling out to number 4, it's a bit of a weird one. It's our old friend, the Wolf, closing today $31.10, off another $4 and change. This thing was trading $35 yesterday, listeners. Just absolutely wild for a stock that was seemingly worthless a few weeks ago. Now, don't be misled by that stock price. There's a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes with the corporate actions, and if you had the stock, you had it diluted tremendously. So this Wolf, not exactly the creature that it used to be out there, but it's bearing its fangs today to the tune of 1.92 million contracts. And again, don't get too excited about that volume. A lot of it was in this, shall we say, interesting paper, like the 1/2 puts going up today nearly 700,000 times. So a lot of funky paper going on in the Wolf today, listeners, unless you're really excited about the 1/2 puts today. A lot of funky flow going on out there in the Wolf. As we keep on rolling to number 3, AMD. Let's sink our teeth, pun intended, into a little bit meatier paper out here. AMD closing today 214 3/4, off about $18 or almost 8% on the day, putting up 2.25 million contracts. Now, we were saying earlier this week when all this news broke about AMD, there was a lot of action on the par puts. Seemed like some folks were looking for a bit of a fade in AMD, and they got one today, but maybe not enough. Again, closing 214 3/4. And the hot option out there in AMD today, this time they are playing in the 0-day game. It was the 230 calls, again expiring today. That's a rough one. 101,000 contracts on the tape for those. Average price for these, 87 cents, listeners. That is a rough one. Now, you had your shot. The stock got as high as 234 and about a quarter. That was very much in the early minutes of the session. So you had some moments if you bought these to maybe try to monetize them, but not much. So looks like all that 87 cents, if you shelled it out today, pretty much went to die, listeners. As we keep on rolling out to number 2, it's our old friend Tesla, 413 and about a half, off $22, pretty much exactly, or about 5%. So they are coming for Tesla again as well. So again, all week long, we've been talking about 420s, 430s, 440s, 450s. We did talk about some puts yesterday, which was a little bit of an aberration. Seems like that was the right way to go in hindsight today, though. Again, nearly 4 million contracts changing hands in Tesla today, 3.89 million, but not enough to take the top spot, listeners. The hot option in Tesla today, 170,000 of our old friends, the 440s, listeners. Oh, that's painful. Average price for these, $1.77. And we know if passes prologue, they were opening on these and they were buying them. Early in the session, you were there, 443. They just clobbered it almost immediately here, listeners. Again, that looks painful. $1.77, nearly 170,000 times. That's a rough one. As we keep on rolling to number 1, listeners, it's Nvidia. After hitting new all-time high after new all-time high, seemingly every session this week, giving some back to the market guys today, selling off about 9.25 or almost 5%, closing right around 183 today, listeners, putting up 5.5 million contracts. So that's the most active we've seen Nvidia out there in some time, listeners. And the hot option in a very spicy day in Nvidia today, listeners, nearly 400,000, 395,000. Again, we're talking index volume here. Of the 195 calls, again, expiring today. Average price for these, you hope it'd only be a cent or two, but no, it was 42 cents. once again, they opened at pretty much that fresh all-time high, so those 195s are looking like they were within spitting distance. Unfortunately, until they weren't. Just an absolute bloodletting here in our top 10 today, listeners. A lot of people, looks like they were reaching for some near-term highs and unfortunately got the rug pulled out from under them pretty viciously today. And that's going to do it for your hot options report for Friday, October 10th. Hope you dodged some of that rug pulling that was going out today. Hope you had a decent trading week, even with all the bloodletting on the screen on Friday. If you missed anything on the network, again, make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And of course, if you want some hand-holding, you want some actionable trades, you want some unusual activity, you want to ask questions, some of the best minds in the world of options and derivatives, you want to get early access to a lot of great stuff, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Arguably more important than ever in markets like this. So make sure you're checking it out. And we'll see you back here next week. Another episode of the Hot Options Report. Stay safe out there.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.